Welcome, my friends, new guitar players and those who are frustrated with their progress. Let me tell you, after 40 years of playing and teaching, these are the 5 most important things that every beginner guitar player must know. You'll use 100% of this for the rest of your playing. So let's start off. Practice. Number 1. Seems like it shouldn't have to be said, but it is. It is the only thing that's going to make you a great player. It's the difference between a mediocre player and a great player. It's practice, okay? Now, a lot of people think, no, that's not true. I need to be born with a certain amount of talent and this, that, and the other thing. You can think whatever you want. I promise you that's going to really wreck things for you. If you think that way, I wouldn't even get started, because absolutely 100% guitar is all about practice. And it's a good thing for us to say this and to know it and to really, in the beginning, understand this, because literally anything that you desire to do on this instrument, you can do if you have the proper steps and if you do the practice, okay? So number 1, practice cannot be avoided. It's the only thing that's gonna work for you. If you're not into practicing, don't pick this thing up. It's just gonna frustrate the hell out of you, okay? That's number 1. Number 2, your hands are not too small, they're not too big, okay? Plenty of videos on YouTube that will prove this. It really comes down to practice again, but having hands that are too small, my hands are not giant hands. I've taught students that have much smaller hands. I've taught students that have much bigger hands, and there was nothing. After teaching over 10,000 one-on-one lessons, there's literally no evidence that I saw that hand size had anything to do with playing the guitar well, okay? It really, truly has to do, going back to that practice, all right? Your fingers will hurt. There is a beginner stage of the fingertips hurting and the muscles hurting just a little bit, getting sore and what have you. You're doing something new. You're learning a new language. So just accept that as part of the gauntlet, right? Part of this journey. How to hold the guitar, okay? So we had to cover that other stuff first. It's absolutely essential. Knowing the psychology of this is 90% of everything you're going to be doing. And if you don't have that as a basis, you're gonna fail. But now getting into the actual playing of the guitar, we still are talking about some basics. How to hold the guitar is absolutely everything. People say, oh, what do you mean how to hold the guitar? I just hold it on my leg. Yeah, get it, right? But there are a couple other things that we need to talk about. There's a couple different ways that we can hold the guitar. Number 1, if you can hold this on your dominant leg, right? Which is what most people do. It's called the folk style of playing. Or you can hold it like this, which is the more classical style. This is going to give you more support. It's not right. It's not wrong. It's just different. And so you may want to try that. If you're playing classical, when I was playing classical guitar more, I always held my guitar like that, unless I was playing electric or rock or something like that, and then I would go the folk style. This is a little bit shaky because you really only have 2 points of, or maybe 3 points of holding the guitar. You got your thigh, you got your body, and you got your arm. Whereas opposed to the classical style, you've got 4, right? You've got the arm, you've got your 2 legs, and you've got your chest. So there's a little bit more support there. It's not as wobbly. Reason being that that's a problem sometimes in the beginning is the beginning guitar players trying to grapple the neck, trying to hold it in place. They're leaning over, the guitar is moving forward, and we're talking about the beginner stages. So it's kind of like putting a baby who's learning to walk on ice skates or something like that. It's like, that would be really cruel, because now you're throwing in another obstacle in there. So it's important to identify this and to understand that without the proper posture, you're starting off not on the right foot, okay? So I would suggest trying the classical stance, at least at first, until you can get your proper picking and proper fretting down, and then you can move it over to the other leg, okay? So you'll see pro guitar players playing like this all the time. It's because they've gotten used to this now, and they've got great technique, and it's not an issue for them. But for the beginner guitar player, I would suggest going with the classical stance, just because it's starting you off on an easier, it's setting you off on an easier road, if you will. And again, when you're comfortable, you can always get to the more comfortable position of playing folk style. All right, number 4 is basic picking techniques, and specifically something what I call the pick rest. And I borrowed this from the classical style of playing guitar, where we did something called a rest stroke. And I found it to be indispensable for my students in really learning proper pick control. It's super easy to do, and once you get it, you got it. It's not like you have to practice it over and over and over again. Once you get it, you get it. And it goes like this. What you want to do is you want to take the pick, and starting on the 6th string here, what you want to do is pick, but you don't want to have your hand go out to the air. That's not the purpose of the pick rest. What you want to do is you want to take the pick and push it down to where the pick rests on the next string below it. Okay, now for most people, this is not an issue at first, but many people, just this basic concept, they don't get. They're like, I'm doing it. No, you're not doing it. You're just kind of picking out into the air. The whole point of this is to rest the pick on the string below the one that you're picking. There's many reasons why you would want to do this, but the main reason is pick control. And especially if you have a problem doing this. In fact, the more problems that you have doing this, the more you're going to gain from this. So if you're having issues with it, great. If you're not having issues with it, you're probably beyond that already. So what you want to do is you want to do this with the 6th string. You want to do this with the 5th string. You want to do this with all the strings. The 1st string ain't going to help because you don't have a string to rest upon. To ramp it up, make it more difficult, try 2 strings at a time. So I'm picking 6 and 5, resting on 4. And you want it to sound as much as in unison, timing-wise, as possible, as opposed to you would do it all at once. And then go through the iterations of 2 strings throughout the whole guitar, and then you want to do 3 strings. And I'm resting my pick there on that 3rd string. Doing this is going to allow you to have really good control of your pick. And if you do this for, I don't know, half hour or so the very first time, you're going to be great at this. You may not even need to do it that much. Number 5 is basic fretting techniques. So understanding how to fret the guitar, understanding how to pick the guitar, hold the guitar, these are all things that you're going to be using 100% of the time from here on out, all right, as a guitar player. So these are the foundations. And I don't know about you, but if I was going to build a building, if I was going to chintz on anything, I might chintz on the paint, all right? But I'm not going to chintz on the foundation of the building because that determines the construct of it and everything else. I'm not going to chintz on anything, but I'm definitely not going to chintz on the foundation of that house, right? So you don't want to do that either with your playing. You want to make sure that you really know this stuff. So let's talk about the basics of fretting. So absolutely important. You're going to be doing it for a bit on chords, on solos, on scales, on everything, okay? So few basic things very, very quickly here is you want to play on the tips of your fingers. This is not the tip of your finger. This is the tip of your finger. So if you take your hand and you look at it like that, those are the tips of your fingers. For my students, I used to take a Sharpie and put a little black dot on their fingers just to remind them. So if they're looking at their hands while they're playing and that dot's staring up at them like an eyeball, they know they're playing wrong already. So that dot needs to go on the string. Awkward? Sure it is. It's awkward at first. That's okay. That's why we practice. Back to number 1, right? So number 1, playing on that tip of your finger. Also, you want to play as close to the fret as possible. Most beginners think, well, I want to play right in the middle. Nope. You want to play close to the fret. And if you do this at first, if you're kind of hyper aware of it at first, it's a habit that you won't have to think of later on. You'll just establish a great habit. But at first, you have to think a little bit. So if I want to play the 2nd fret, I'm going to use my 2nd finger. If it's the 3rd fret, I'll use my 3rd finger. 4th fret, I'll use my 4th finger. You want to play on that fingertip and you want to play right behind the fret. Another silver bullet for helping you be a great guitar player, for your solos, for all things is to curl your fingers. The flatter they are, the more problems you're going to have, especially when it comes to chords, but really when it comes to everything. A great guitar player has those fingers curled. And again, if you establish these habits in the beginning when it's awkward anyhow, it's all awkward no matter what you're doing, okay? Bad technique or good technique. Adding the good technique makes it a teeny bit more awkward, but I can promise you it pays off in spades, okay? Thumbs up, subscribe, leave your comments below. I'm here for you. All right, thanks so much. I'll see you in the next video.